I'm a little pissy. I get this text from my father-in-law. My father-in-law, not my husband, my father-in-law. I get this. Mind you, I did not build this house. My husband and my father-in-law built it, mainly my husband. I am very grateful for that.
Gee, it sure doesn't sound like you're grateful. You just said you were mad. For those of you who didn't read the text that she posted, her father-in-law sent a message asking her to clean up a mess that was created while building the house that she lives in. By the way, it wasn't like he said, "Woman, clean up this mess now." It was, "Here's what needs to be done. Thank you very much. You're the best." Actions speak louder than words, and someone who was grateful would not have a meltdown from being asked to clean. A grateful person would either clean up the mess, send a text back explaining why she can't do it, or negotiate for a lesser responsibility.
But this is what I come home to after working an entire shift on my feet all day that I now have to clean, even though I did not make this mess. Look at it. I now have to pick up everything off the floor, all of it. I have to clean this entire island, put all of their tools away, clean all this, everything off the floor. I have to get all of this. This is sawdust because they decided to cut things inside my house. And I have to get this all done tonight before my husband gets home so I can spend time with him.
Big deal. That looks like 1 to 2 hours of work that you can do while listening to a podcast. It's not the end of the world, and I'm sure that if you didn't finish by the time he got home, your husband would still be happy with the work that you did complete. I have some questions, though. How long was your shift? She appears to be a hairdresser. I have no idea how many hours they work, but if she works like a 4-hour shift, there's no excuse for her behavior. Clean the mess. He's building you a house. If she works like an 8-hour shift, I can see where she's coming from a little bit, but welcome to being an adult. Sometimes you have to work all day, come home, and work until you go to sleep. Did your husband not work all day at whatever he does for a living and have to come home to building a house? So that was TikTok video number 1. The saga continues a day later with this video.
So last night I did not clean the house. You guys really opened my eyes and made me see that this was not my problem. It's not my thing. There's so much. I bitched to my husband last night and told him that I was really pissed off.
To all the women watching, listen to what she said. I bitched to my husband when he got home. If there is one thing that men hate, it's doing a bunch of work and then getting yelled at by their wife over some nonsense the minute they get home. That's relationship-ending material, and it's certainly not the same respect that she was given. Her father-in-law said please and thank you, while she thought it was appropriate to air out her personal drama to a bunch of strangers on TikTok to make her husband look bad.
And so I get home today, and this is what I come home to. A fully cleaned house. They have a little bit of stuff right here, but that's fine. That's it. They organized all their tools, and I didn't have to do a single thing. Either they got the message that was super disrespectful, or they think I'm completely incompetent and they won't ever ask me to do anything again. Either way, win for me.
Bruh, I have no idea who you are, but you picked the wrong girl. I have a lot of trouble believing that this is the first time she's ever behaved like this, so you bear some of the responsibility for not kicking her to the curb before marrying her. The fact that she was happy to not have to do work after being labeled incompetent is a massive red flag. Because either you do have someone who is incompetent and not a good relationship partner for running a household, or you have someone who is unwilling to do her share of the work, which is arguably worse than being incompetent. With that said, I guarantee you that the husband did not see the error of his ways considering how rudely she responded. Bitching at people is not an effective way to change their opinion. Good conversations have give and take. Maybe it's crunch time and her husband is trying to have her lighten the workload a bit so their house isn't under construction for 3 years. Maybe what her husband asked was a little unreasonable, so she says, "Hey, you know what? This looks like a lot of work, but I'll do what I can, and then maybe when you get home, we can work on it together." That sentence I just said versus what she actually said is the difference between a happy marriage and a divorce. Speaking of, I'm sure this next thing was obvious.
This is the update. It's not a good one. It's not a fun one. It actually really sucks. But I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We had a long conversation a couple days ago my husband and I, and we've come to the conclusion that the best thing for both of us is for this to end. So we are getting a divorce. We've been separated for the past couple days, obviously. We just have to put the legal actions into motion. But yes, we are getting a divorce.
The most shocking thing here is that she sort of acts like she's surprised that he wants a divorce. Not only is she happy to not contribute to the household, but she has a terrible attitude. And instead of having an honest conversation with her husband about her issues in the relationship, she makes a public post about what a piece of shit her husband is in front of nearly 6 million people. Man, I think this crap is inappropriate when people do it on Facebook in front of like 10 people. Imagine nearly 6 million. Nearly 6 million people who are largely in agreement with what she said. This is reputation destruction, and it baffles me to see that she thinks an appropriate response to not wanting to do chores is, let me make a video talking about what a terrible husband I have that everyone in his community will see. Did you honestly expect that would lead to a good relationship? So this video was sent to me by a female viewer who is in Gen Z. Her question to me was basically asking how she should handle a situation like this. My honest response was, why would you put yourself in a place where something like this would happen? The idea that I've been using this channel to promote is not what to do when you're in a relationship with an abuser. My message has always been, don't get involved in relationships with abusive people. Don't put yourself in that position. I am a big proponent of traditional relationships with one parent who stays at home, and it sounded like the person who sent me this TikTok video wanted a traditional relationship. These days, that's a little difficult because the economy sucks, and very often it is hard to survive on a single income. But at the same time, I realize that on this channel, I'm not speaking to all women. I'm speaking to a small percentage of women, so there are plenty of men who want to get married out there who make enough money for those women to be housewives. My advice to her was basically, be so valuable that you can attract someone who can afford to support you as a housewife so that you don't have to work 8 hours and clean the house when you get home. The problem with this is something that I've mentioned before. Thanks to feminism, Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z were not taught the skills necessary to run a household successfully, particularly on the female side, because the way this is all played out is that men are expected to uphold their traditional responsibilities by providing the income and fixing things, but women aren't expected to uphold theirs. Equality, right? The 3 major skills that women do not have that I believe cause the most fights are cooking, cleaning, and childcare. Cooking, as in most women do not know how to make desirable meals that are healthy. It takes about 3 to 5 years of cooking practice to be able to do that. Cleaning, as in not knowing enough about the skill so that it doesn't take all day. Folding laundry can take 30 minutes if you don't know what you're doing, or it can take 5 minutes if you know how to fold quickly. And childcare, as in being able to manage kids properly so that they help around the house and so that they aren't a pain in the ass to be around. I've already talked about this stuff a lot in these 2 videos here, so I'm not going to go over that again. But what I am going to go over is what's preventing women from learning these skills outside of the feminist narrative in a way that will apply to everyone. There's a misconception in the way skills are learned that was likely taught by public schools that removes all of the fun out of learning a skill. For example, if you want to make kids hate reading, then make them take a bunch of nonsense notes and assign them 10 questions to answer for 5 pages of material that serves no purpose other than to prove that the kid read the book. That kind of useless extra work that has no benefit to the reader will suck the life out of something that should be fun. With that kind of structure, you could even make kids hate video games. The way skills actually should be built is through a mixture of immersion into the skill and time spent learning new aspects of that skill. Most of your time spent with the skill should be with immersion. I'll give you an example of how these 2 things play out. When I study Japanese, every day I have daily challenges that I'm supposed to complete. Kind of like how video games like Apex Legends assign daily challenges to get you addicted to playing their game every day. Use that psychology, it works. My dailies for Japanese are 10 minutes of vocab flashcard study with Brainscape, 10 to 20 minutes of practicing kanji with Kanji Study. That's not hard because I can listen to podcasts while doing that. And 5 minutes or so of learning a new grammar point or reviewing an old one. That's it. That's like 30 minutes of the stuff that's boring, and the rest of the time is spent in immersion. What's immersion for Japanese? A bunch of fun stuff. Playing Japanese video games, reading Japanese manga or books, watching anime, watching Japanese YouTubers, and talking to people in Japanese. All of that stuff is fun, so it's not a big deal to immerse for 2 to 3 hours a day. When you get this stuff right, skills become fun. Cooking should be fun. When you know what you're doing with food, cooking is a massive creative outlet that people will then praise you for if you get it right. You spend 5 minutes learning new knife skills and an hour practicing those knife skills while making dinner. Repeat that process, learn some new recipes, and in 6 months, cooking becomes a blast, especially when you learn enough about ingredients to start making your own recipes. The reason you have so many people complaining about these activities is because they simply aren't skilled enough to make it fun and receive praise for their talent. Of course, cooking can be a pain if you don't know what you're doing. Every skill is a pain when you don't know what you're doing. Imagine how boring and confusing playing a Japanese video game is when you don't speak the language. It's a chore. Reframe the skill so it's fun and learning will be easy. But that's enough for this video. Please support me on alternative platforms by subscribing to me on Odysee. Donation links are in the description if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching.